Hi, Deb here, and I'm having a heck of a time with my hair. My scar is even showing right here. But that's not what you tune in to see, is it? I'm going to talk about another First Lady, and this time it is Helen Taft, wife to William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft. Another Ohio First Lady. This is, of course, Madame Alexander doll. And look at the hair, look at the jewelry, and look at this gown. This is a replica of her inaugural gown with the train. And I'm going to read you something right away. It's her description. She is the First Lady to write her memoirs and have it published during her lifetime. It was written in 1914. She's describing her gown. I'm going to read it really quickly. It was made of heavy white satin, which I had sent to Tokyo to have embroidered, and the people who did the work surely knew their art. A pattern of goldenrod was outlined by silver thread and cleverly fitted into the long lines of the gown. No other trimming had been used except some lace, which the low-cut bodice was finished. It fit me admirably. And that fits this description of this dress. She was the first, there's the cape. She was the First Lady to donate her inaugural gown to the Smithsonian. I think every First Lady has done that since. She was a First Lady at first. Satin shoes, look at that. Madame Alexander goes way out of their way. Look at the little pearls on the sleeve. However, I have a pet peeve. They do all this go to all this trouble, but they don't bother to worry about the hair color. Nellie Taft had dark hair, and that's not the first Madame Alexander I've seen that does that. Don't know why, but look at that. Who cares, right? Well, I care. Okay, and this is the memoir. It was written in 1914, or published in 1914. It's called Full Years. And this was an interesting book. She is a woman of her time. Some of her phrasing would not be acceptable today, but in her time it was perfectly, it wasn't meant as any derogatory. Anyway, she doesn't use like the N-word or anything. In fact, when they went to the Philippines, he was governor of the Philippines, she broke the color barrier and she invited Filipinos, to come to the governor's mansion. But the military had been running it before, and they did not think the races should mix in any fashion, but she broke that. Anyway, she was born June 2nd, 1861 in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was a private school teacher. She held salons, which were generally meant women got together and chatted and stuff, but this was for, I think men, I know men were allowed as well. And they talked about politics, they talked about world events, she was an intellectual and she had no time for gossip and stuff. She met William Taft and they married because she wanted a man that, not for just the traditional family and all that. She wanted somebody she could talk to and who would listen to her, and she found that in William Howard Taft. She was president of the Cincinnati Symphony, and in fact, she helped start it. She played piano. They were married in 1886. He was appointed governor of the Philippines, and when America took over the Philippines, and as I said, the military did not appreciate a government person coming, but they helped educate according to this book, less than 10% of the Filipinos had been educated. I haven't checked that to see if that's true, but that's what it says in here. And in order for them to be self-ruled, they felt they should be educated. And they built roads, and the Filipino people loved the Tafts. But eventually, President Roosevelt appointed him Secretary of War, so they had to move back to D.C. She loved the Orient. She loved everything. She was free. She could ride horses. She could go on adventures. She was an adventurer. She, but back in D.C., she couldn't do those things. So I think that was hard. She always wanted him to be president. He wanted to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He was a lawyer. And he even, Theodore Roosevelt offered him that position while he was governor of the Philippines, but he had just got things started in the Philippines and he couldn't leave. He turned down his dream job in order to stay and finish his job. So anyway, Secretary of War, they're back. She got bored. She went to salons there and it was just gossip and tease, and it was not for her. But she wanted him to be president of the United States, and ultimately he was. So, and then she wanted to make Washington, D.C. the cultural center of America. And you know those beautiful cherry trees that you see in Washington, D.C., she's the reason, because she loved them. When she was living in the Philippines, she went to Japan a lot, and the Japanese government sent them 3,000 cherry trees because of her. So when you enjoy those cherry trees, it's Helen Taft you have to thank for that. Let's see, she was the first lady to ride in the car back to the White House with her husband. She just decided to do it because Roosevelt took off. He wanted to go home. So she said, well, I'll ride with him. She replaced the white ushers in the White House with African-American ushers in fine uniforms. Apparently that was a big to-do. People got upset because they were greeting them. Okay, let's see. She is the first lady to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, Jackie Kennedy being the only other one, because her husband was Secretary of War. So, let's see. She did a lot of firsts. She advised his cabinet choices. She was his main advisor because he didn't have a lot of close friends, and he trusted her judgment, and he could. But 2 months after his inauguration, she had a stroke and lost her ability to speak. He helped her with all his other duties. He helped her with her rehab, especially speaking, because he needed her. After the presidency, he became president of Yale. He wanted to be a judge again, but he had appointed so many, he didn't feel he could do that. But then he was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He got to do his dream job. I think he died in 1930 or 31. She died in 1943. She was the first lady to attend the Supreme Court arguments. She was the first lady to go to a convention, but she went to the Democratic convention. They were Republicans, but she just wanted to see what it was like. And her feelings on suffrage changed. I told you she had a stroke. She had a stroke in 1909 and then another in 1911. She smoked. They kept that quiet. She smoked and drank and played cards. Those were no-nos. But Theodore Roosevelt supported prohibition, not so much prohibition, but once it passed, he felt it should be enforced. She was against it completely. But anyway, so he came to support suffrage before she did. She didn't think women had been educated and properly educated in the ways of the world and in order to vote. But she came around and then she became a suffragist. So she could change. After his death, she went back to traveling the world. And I forget where all but they loved Canada. He would have put his summer White House in Canada, but that wasn't allowed, or it wasn't accepted that a president leave U.S. soil during his presidency. But they loved Marie Bay, and she spent a lot of time there near the end of her life. So she was an adventurous first lady. I wanted you to know about her. I wanted you to see this amazing doll and dress. Check out my First Ladies playlist. I can no longer link things. YouTube's not happy with me for some reason. Anyway, her first visit to the White House was with the Rutherford B. Hayes and Lucy Webb Hayes. I love her. I've done a video on her. So that was her first visit to the White House, and she knew she was coming back. So this, read it, understanding it was written in 1914, and it's an interesting book. She stops the book when he leaves the White House. She doesn't write about any of their life after that. I don't know why. But anyway, that's Helen Taft, First Lady. I hope you like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I hope I've sparked your interest in my First Lady dolls and the ladies they represent. Next time, toodles.